Hi, I'm Dr. Michaela, and thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to help you to learn how to identify your negative core beliefs that are keeping you and most people stuck from ever reaching their full potential. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about how I got here today. You see, I grew up with a horrible childhood. Neglect, abandonment, parents weren't there, nobody to look after me. And through the course of many years and many traumas and tragedies, I found myself at the age of 21 in the country of Japan. I was lost, I was alone, didn't care if I lived or died, and I don't think anybody at that point in my life cared either. But there had come a point where I found myself heading back to the United States. And there was something in me that decided I wanted to change the direction that I was going. And I wanted to make something of myself. And I wanted to do something with my life. So when I got back from the States, I did everything different. And I didn't have the victim mentality, and I started moving in that positive direction. But what I didn't realize is that I was still surviving. I was still in that survival mode. And I didn't know how to turn that off. Because what I hadn't learned yet was really how to live. So what I did is I sought out a treatment called EMDR therapy. And through the course of doing this eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, I was able to actually learn to identify what those negative beliefs were and actually change them so that I wasn't still surviving and in survival mode, but I had learned how to live. And then I began treating with EMDR therapy and paying it forward. But before I could ever change those negative beliefs, I first had to discover what those thoughts were, what those beliefs were, and that's what I'm going to help teach you today. So negative thoughts are those thoughts that we sometimes flat out hear ourselves saying to ourselves. I should have known better. I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? So those are some of those really direct and obvious negative thoughts that we hear. But we'll also hear those negative thoughts when we are putting ourselves down, when we are telling ourselves negative things that we can't do, reminding ourselves of things we can't do. So those thoughts are ongoing, and sometimes they're not so obvious. But we'll notice that they're there when we're stuck or inhibited from doing things that we know we could do. We know how to do them, but for some reason we don't. So these negative thoughts, we hear people talk about beliefs all the time, and it sounds somewhat like an idea or a concept, but realistically, there's a part of the brain, it's actually in the limbic system part of the brain, more specifically in the hippocampus. And the hippocampus holds our beliefs, which are actually representations and meanings. Now, these beliefs are formed usually early in our childhood. Core beliefs, usually before the age of 8 or before the age of 15, and they're usually very illogical because kids and adolescents don't have a lot of logic. But those core beliefs sit in the limbic system part of your brain. They don't change. We don't get rid of them. They continue to stack one on top of the other, and they're influenced by the one before. And those beliefs influence and impact and direct everything that we do in our lives. Every decision we make, how we design our lives, the people that we choose in our lives, the career we choose to have, everything we do is impacted by what we believe because we follow a belief guideline and it's our own. And the problem with that is that we don't have access to those beliefs, typically, but we can change them. And that's what I'm going to help you to understand and do. So negative core beliefs hold us back and impact our lives and hold us from ever reaching our full potential every day. And we experience this when we stop ourselves at a specific place, such as someone who is trying to get to the next level in their business, but they can't because of the fear associated with A, B, C, and D, the things that they have to do. Or we'll see this in our relationships when we have difficulty with maintaining relationships or repeating negative patterns, or when we have insecurities or fears. Those all come from negative beliefs. So most often, we'll notice more so the feeling, being anxious or fearful or feeling insecure. Whenever we have a feeling, there's always a thought. The two go hand in hand. or opportunities that people are too afraid to take advantage of because of thoughts like, I can't succeed, or I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or I can't do it, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough. And these are typical negative beliefs that people have, whether you're aware of it or not. They're rolling around in your subconscious mind, and you need to specifically be able to identify what negative beliefs you have controlling and impacting your life. So we're going to do a quick exercise. And what I'm going to have you do is find a quiet place. And I want to help you to become mindful and aware of some of the negative beliefs that you might have and that you might recognize having, so that you can begin to then change them. So I want you to stop and think for a second. As you go throughout your day, you go throughout your week, all of the things that you have to do on a daily basis, with your family, in your career, with your job, just in your life. And think about those moments where you find yourself anxious or fearful, or you find yourself kind of stuck, like, oh, I don't want to move forward and I don't want to do that very next thing that's too scary. Or maybe you notice yourself talking yourself out of it. Those are some of these negative thoughts that you might have. So I want you to get a pen and a paper. And as you start going through these different scenes and moments in your life, I want you to notice those points, which we'll call triggers, where you find yourself hesitant. And when you think about those triggers specifically, I want you to just kind of tune into your body and think about what would be the first natural response. What's that thought when you think about getting up on stage and speaking to an audience or a crowd? Or when you think about going and introducing yourself to somebody new who you haven't met before, or taking advantage of one of those opportunities I was mentioning. And when you think about one of those events, what's the natural thought that comes up that fits that anxious or fearful feeling? I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. And I want you to just start jotting down some of those negative thoughts. Just jot them down on a piece of paper. And I want you to add next to each one of those thoughts what the event was that matched that thought. But more importantly, this is how we begin to start identifying what those negative beliefs are specifically. And they're usually very simple and they're usually very logical. So if you need a moment, go ahead and pause the video, take your time, because identifying what your negative beliefs are, it's very important because our brain holds specific words, a specific language that only fits to you, to each person. So it's important to really listen and tune in to hearing what those are. So if you need time, go ahead and stop the video and then you can come back and join us once you're done. So how'd that go? Did you make a list of 5, 10, 15? So I want you to hold on to that list, because what we're going to do next now is we're going to actually track back to earlier times in your life. Because what we just did is we looked at some current things going on, some goals and daily activities and events in your life where you might have heard some of those negative thoughts. So we're going to now go back to some of your earlier times in your life. So I want you to think about, as you were growing up, some of the things that you experienced, because negative beliefs aren't necessarily formed from traumas and tragedies. They're formed every day, because the way our brain works is it's like a computer, and it's taking in data all the time. It's taking in what happens all throughout the day, and then when you go to sleep and you're in that REM sleep mode, it's actually forming conclusions based on all that data. And it does that for your survival. So when you think about a kid and some of the things that they go through, let's say, for example, the boy on the baseball team, and Timmy's on the team, and he's not doing well, and some of the kids are heckling him. So as he goes through that experience, his brain's actually taking in all that data, and it's forming a conclusion that's based on very little logic, because our brain doesn't even actually activate logic until the age of 8. So most of our core beliefs have little or no logic to them. So Timmy's being teased, and the core belief is, I'm not good enough, or I should have done something. Now, core beliefs aren't necessarily negative things about ourselves. They're also responsibility beliefs and control beliefs, I'm not in control, I should have done something, I should have known better, I can't get what I want, what have you. So start going through some of the events, whether they're little events, which we call small T traumas, such as being bullied, or something small happening, somebody teases you about something, or you are asked to go to the front of the class and read, and you're nervous, and when you do read in the 3rd grade, all the kids start laughing. There's a negative belief that's formed. I'm not good enough, which is a very typical ongoing belief that many people struggle with. So as you go through some of these events, start at a very early age, and then just go through the timeline. When you were in grade school, what was that like? What was it like at school? Think about when you're thinking of the other kids, what do you think they thought of you? Because whatever you think they thought of you, that's a core belief that was formed. So when I think about the other kids and how they were looking at me and how I was dressed, I'm worthless. I'm not good enough. I'm not supposed to be here. I don't deserve good things, what have you. And then as you move forward, you go into your high school and your later years, think about your relationships. We have a job, we get fired. I can't succeed. I'm a failure. But this is how fast your brain operates. It does this outside of your awareness. You don't even have control that this is happening. It's just taking in the events all throughout the day and forming beliefs on your behalf, which are controlling your life. Now, I really want you to take your time as you start thinking back on some of these events in your life, with your family, your home environment growing up, at school, as you grew up with your friends and with your peers, some of the events that you've gone through. I want you to really take your time, because with each one of those events, there's actually one specific belief, cognition we also call them. And your brain actually holds one very important special belief that it associates with that event. And that's why it's important to really take your time and think about it. And it's usually, as I said, a very natural first instinctual thought when you think about that event. So what I'm going to have you do is, and if you need to pause the video, please do so. Because when you're done, I'm going to have you take both of those lists and just kind of hold those together as we then go into our 3rd and final exercise. Now, take both lists, and what we're going to do is now match up some of the negative thoughts that you wrote down with some of the events that you also listed. So I'd like you to really go down your list with each event, and as you look over at your negative beliefs, just notice which one feels like it fits best. And most likely there's going to be more than one that fits, probably 5 or 10, or if you were like me, probably 20. But I want you to really narrow it down to what are the 3 best, the 2 best, and if you had to pick which one fits the very best when you think about that event. Now here's a way to really know or hone into whether or not that's the right belief. So if you take a specific event in your life, anything, doesn't have to be traumatic or tragic, just any event specifically that comes up or memorable to you, and you take a belief that you think probably fits best, such as having to go in front of the class in the 3rd grade, and you have your list of beliefs, and I'm not good enough seems like that probably fits. So I want you to think about that event, and I want you to hold that event in your mind's eye, and I want you to hold that negative belief together with that event. And when you hold those two together, if you were to focus or just notice or become aware of your body, how does your body respond to holding those two, the event and that particular belief together? So do you notice a little bit of anxiety in your chest? Do you notice like a lump in your throat, something in your head, maybe a little headache or a sharp pain, your stomach, your shoulders, really anywhere in your body? Because when you have the right event with the right belief or negative thought, your body will respond to it. And that's a surefire way to identify that that's the right belief for that event. Now, at any time during these exercises, if you feel emotional or upset, I want you to go ahead and stop the video. If you have a therapist, contact your therapist. Contact 911 if you need to, if it's an absolute emergency and you're overwhelmed. Otherwise, you can go ahead and continue with the exercises. So we're going to take those two lists that you have with the events and the negative beliefs that you've matched up together. And here's why this was important to do. As you matched those up and you noticed the response that your body was having, we call that response a charge. So there's a charge behind, oh, when I think about going in front of my class in the 3rd grade and I match that together with I'm not good enough, oh, I kind of felt that in my body. So there's a charge there. So those particular beliefs that had the charge behind them, those are the beliefs that are still sitting in the hippocampus part of your brain that are influencing your life today. So what you're going to do is become more mindful and aware to those particular beliefs. So you might want to create a 3rd list of the particular beliefs that had a charge behind them. So as you take this 3rd list with some of those charges, you're going to notice as you wake up tomorrow when those particular beliefs seem to come up. Because as you made yourself more aware of them, you're going to notice them a lot more. And as they come up, I want you to practice and get in a habit of telling yourself the opposite each time you hear them. Now, you can also, when you notice yourself going through any of your daily activities or some of these goals, when you notice fear or anxiety or some of those insecurities come up, you could also practice telling yourself some of the positive things that you would like to believe. So, I can do it, I am good enough, I am safe, I can succeed, etc., etc. So as you consistently start telling yourself these positive beliefs and challenging some of the negative ones that you've become aware of, you are retraining your brain. Because just as we can be brainwashed to believe some of these negative things about ourselves, we can also brainwash ourselves to believe the opposite. So our brain is very trainable and teachable. It's just a matter of practicing, making it a habit, and challenging those negative beliefs, which are ultimately lies. Now, you can permanently change those negative core beliefs, and you can do that utilizing a therapy called EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. Now, EMDR is amazing because it specifically targets those negative beliefs sitting in the limbic system part of your brain so that you can reprocess them, which just means change them. And what's amazing is that once you go through the EMDR treatment and you complete that process, those negative beliefs never come back. So it's a permanent change. So as you go through EMDR, which was created 20, 30 plus years ago for veterans of war, for veterans who would dive under a coffee table anytime they heard a car alarm go off or a bell or a sound because they believed they were not safe, it has been utilized and changed lives for years and years and years and years. The process is similar to some of the lists that you made. You target a particular event and you match it with a particular belief. You hold those together, you notice that charge, and you begin what we call reprocessing in the clinical world, which basically just means that you are free processing. We use in EMDR a bilateral movement. It's just a back and forth movement. And there's different modes. You can use audio, you can use visual. Regardless of the back and forth movement, we've found that when you hold a belief with a memory or an event, and you have a bilateral movement, a back and forth movement, it actually zaps that part of your brain, the hippocampus, that holds your beliefs. So as you go through that process, the belief slowly begins to change. And then we have a new phase once you begin to change, which is what would you rather believe about yourself? See, EMDR used to be called EMD. We found that we could just desensitize particular negative beliefs as you held them with events in your life, whether they were in your past or their current triggers. But what we did is we added the reprocessing part because we thought, well, rather than just desensitize, what can we do to actually change it so that when they are triggered, an actual positive belief comes up? And that's where the reprocessing part came, which is why it's now EMDR therapy. So in doing EMDR treatment, what I realized is that Not everybody has the time to come into therapy every week. Not everybody can take that time away from their family or their work, or they can commit to that. So what I decided is that we need to find a way that we can make this more effective in a shorter amount of time. And so I created the EMDR intensives, which are 5 days in a row or 10 days in a row of EMDR therapy. And the reason I was able to create this sort of treatment program is that EMDR is the only type of therapy or treatment that doesn't require homework, because all the work that's being done is through the reprocessing. It's all done on the brain. So you can leave, you don't have homework, there's nothing that you need to actually practice or do. It's all done up here. And you'll notice EMDR is working because you'll notice you'll start acting and responding suddenly differently to things. So I created the intensives to make it easier for people to commit to 5 days and you're done, or 10 days and you're done. Now the results I've seen using my EMDR intensives are amazing. Who wants to spend 6 months to a year doing psychotherapy when you can do it in 5 or 10 days? But I'll warn you, it's expensive. It ranges between $5,000 to $15,000 for 5 to 10 or 15 days. And to be honest with you, my time is limited. So what I wanted to do is create a standalone product that everybody could use and everybody could experience how these beliefs change and how it impacts and influences and changes your life. So I created installations, and they're based on some of the events and the lists that you made with the negative beliefs. But what we use is instead future goals, things that you are doing currently in your life, things that you want to get better at, blocks that you want to break through. And there are cognitions that you're going to walk through with my audio that has the same back and forth movement, just as in EMDR, same bilateral stimulation. So it's based on EMDR. And it's going to help you walk through some of these really tough or challenging situations so that you can then begin to create new positive beliefs for yourself. So I've created my performance pack, which includes 3 hours of audio of the most critical information you need to know to actually start retraining your brain. I've also included 12 installations. So what those installations are the most sought out and desired positive beliefs, such as I am good enough, I am smart enough, I can succeed, etc., etc. So I took the 12 most sought out and desired positive beliefs, and I've created a particular audio of about 15 to 20 minutes that is going to walk you through installing that into your brain, which is why it's called installations. So you'll choose any particular one of those positive beliefs based on whatever it is you need to do. So when you think about having to get up on stage or making your own video or doing something really scary, you're going to think about which one of those 12 positive beliefs is going to help you to be able to do that. Then you'll take that installation, you'll put that in, and it's got the same mechanics and based on the concept of EMDR using a back and forth audio movement or sound. And it's going to install that positive belief as you think about that event that you need to tackle. This is a $1,000 program that I'm going to give you today for 50% off. This program practically killed me making. I spent night and day for 3 to 4 months working endlessly, remodifying probably 12, 13, 14, 15 times to get the exact recipe to have the perfect installation to walk you through so that I could guarantee that this was going to work for each person that used it. And I'm so confident that this is going to work for you that if it doesn't, send it back and I guarantee, no questions asked, we'll mail you your money back. So the price is $397. Just click the Buy Now button at the bottom of the page. This is the lowest I can go to recoup the time and the energy that it took me to make these videos. But I wanted to make it because I want it in the hands of everybody so that you can experience what my clients experience every day, what I get to see, these changes in their lives, the change that happened in my life. So send me messages, send me an email, let me know how you're doing. I want to hear how this is changing and impacting your life. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to hear from you.